BookTube is no longer original, but that's not really a surprising statement. As an audience, I wanted to talk about BookTube and just my ideas of it as of recently, because I don't know why I didn't think about this, but it was kind of obvious, so I just wanted to talk about it and just my opinions. I've been watching BookTube since 2016, and back then it was a lot of reviews and recommendation videos, and nowadays it's a lot of reading vlogs, and I love watching reading vlogs. I love watching people talk about the books that they're currently reading, to see their opinions change over time and to, see their ideas of the book that they read be completely fleshed out. But there is a lack of creativity when it comes to videos, especially when I look at people's overall channels and they just post the same video over and over again. And I'm talking TBR challenges, 24-hour reading challenges. This video doesn't end until I find a 5-star video, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Of course, whatever you want to film and upload is whatever you want to film and upload, but it does become so repetitive. BookTube right now is a very oversaturated niche in my opinion, and the reason why a lot of people film those videos is because they do tend to get a lot of views. Because it is so repetitive, it comes to a point where I'm kind of like, why should I click on your video? Because I have no idea the type of books that you read, so would I really be interested in watching that video? The whole idea of these 24-hour reading challenges and everything, they're so vague when it comes to actually reading. So as an audience who is interested in reading a specific genre, there's nothing about that video that actually makes me want to click on it unless you are a creator that I'm familiar with. And as I mentioned before, BookTube does tend to lack creativity because a lot of people are just filming the same videos over and over again. My biggest gripe is honestly the TBR jar challenges, which is frustrating, especially when I look at people's channels and they post these videos every 4 videos, which makes sense obviously because they do a TBR video for every month, but it just gets boring. I don't really like creating TBRs, and I don't like watching TBR videos because what's the point of me watching a video of you saying I want to read this book this month and then you don't have anything to say about this book? You don't even know what this book is about. You just say, oh, I want to read this book. And TBR jar challenges is obviously made so that you have a specific, I guess, question or theme, and from that you pick a book out, so that encourages you to pick up a book that you may not necessarily want to pick up at the moment. I get why people do that, but as an audience, I don't know, that's not something that I'm really interested in, because when it comes to BookTube, I want to hear people talk about the book that they've actually read to see if I would like to read it. Because when you talk about a book that you haven't read, it's kind of like, oh, that's great, but what am I supposed to do with that information? I've done TBR videos before. I've talked about my 2025 anticipated releases. I had a whole video on download books and books that I want to get through, but even with that video, I talked about books that I recommended, and then all the books that I wanted to read, I just listed them out because I had nothing to say about the actual book, because I didn't even know what they are about. I think seasonal TBRs or maybe a yearly TBR is more interesting, but then watching a TBR video every month, I feel like people do that because it's just an easy sit down video that you can do, that you can upload, which there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But even then, I wish people created more videos that were, I guess, more intriguing. For example, Sarah Crowley, I think, does a great job of creating video themed challenges, but overall she does a great job of creating content that is not repetitive. For example, sometimes she would do recommendation videos or wrap-ups or just reading vlogs of what she reads during a week, or just like a week in her life in general, and then she would have specific video themes reading vlog. For example, she has my reading journal picks my reads, my YouTube comments choose the books I read, my name chooses the books I read. Ideas and titles like that really do grab my attention, because I'm kind of like, what do you mean your name chooses the books that you read? And that's what I mean when it comes to creating video ideas that are more interesting and that will grab the audience more. And I myself, I wouldn't say I'm the most original person either. I do have 24-hour reading challenges. I do have the this video doesn't end until I find a 5-star video. And overall, it is really easy to repetitively film these certain themed videos over and over again. But like I mentioned, I do think it's also interesting to branch out to other style of videos, and I kind of want to see more of what you read specifically rather than you just following reading challenges. For example, sometimes I do reading vlogs which are focused on a specific series or a specific book, and some people are interested in that, some people are not. In addition to that, I also do themed videos, and I also do these things called reading diaries, which is basically just what I read during a week mixed with other stuff that I do in my real life. So I try to mix it up a little bit. Something that also kind of annoys me is the fact that everybody reads the same books over and over and over again, which again, I do that as well. I obviously read books that are popular and that are over recommended because I want to see if they're good, you know? What ends up happening is that I either really like the book, or I think that it is overrated, and I'm just wondering, why do people like this book so much? Which is more of a me problem, you know, because everyone's thoughts on a book is subjective. But when a book gets too overhyped, you go into it with really high expectations, and when it doesn't meet your expectations, it's kind of like, oh, okay. And then when everybody that you see reading this book has the same thoughts and feelings on this book, and when you read it and you don't like it, it just makes you feel so bad. The fact that people are also reading and recommending the same book gets pretty frustrating. I've seen videos where people recommend fantasy books, and I swear they just recommend the same books over and over again. If you are recommending Agatha or Throne of Glass, I bet you that person who clicks on the video who is a beginner fantasy reader would have already heard about those books, especially because half of those recommendations come of book talk. And I feel like people who start getting into reading nowadays probably start getting into reading from book talk and then go to booktube. I don't really know, but I don't think people get into reading from booktube because booktube in a way is more commitment, because obviously they are long form videos, and most of the time these books that are recommended have already been recommended repeatedly. So to me, it's kind of tiring to hear people recommend these same books over and over again, such as Shatter Me, The Cruel Prince, or Powerless, Magnolia Parks, etc. Sometimes I do get people recommending me those books as well, which obviously thank you for recommending it to me, but at the same time it's kind of like, I've already heard of those books because they're so popular that it's kind of exhausting, because sometimes I just want to get some new recommendations. It is really interesting though to see the different types of books that people read, because I mainly read fantasy, don't really like any other genres, whereas I've actually seen a lot of booktubers read a lot of romance and more literary fiction. I myself as an audience do need to branch out more to watch booktubers who do read books outside of the genres that I usually read. But that's kind of what I mean where I say there is a lack of originality, because people tend to follow trends, which it makes sense. It always makes sense because people want to read the things that other people are reading. They have FOMO. The way that videos are created are also very similar. They're very focused on aesthetics, you know, having big bookshelves, having those like pretty setup. And let's be honest, a lot of the popular booktubers are white creators, which there's nothing wrong with that, but even then I do wish that they would explore more and read books from authors of color, because a majority of the time I feel like it's mainly white authors that I read where the book is also set in America. In the end, I am a hypocrite because obviously I do these same things myself. I do follow these challenges and these trends, and I do feel like part of it is obviously because the booktubers that I watch do tend to have the same content. If I explored more outside of what I watch in booktube, there would definitely be other channels that will probably have videos that I'm more interested in rather than the channels that usually pop up on my feed. And because I watch these channels that have these particular videos, obviously other videos are gonna pop up on my recommendation that's basically all my opinions on this idea of originality on booktube. Just in general, it's hard to be original on booktube or booktalk, just social media, because everybody is gonna follow everybody, including me. But this was just something that I realized while looking at other people's channels, and it's just something that I found really interesting that I wanted to talk about. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I will see you guys in another one. Bye!